And I'll just 2 seconds. So welcome everybody, Bore da, croeso, and welcome to this Four Nations event on youth engagement in social housing, unlocking the potential, I think was the strapline for it. I just want to say I'm David Wilton from TPAS Cymru, and just explain this Four Nations setup. You're probably aware the three TPAS, Scotland, England and Wales are, and then supported communities. We are separate independent organisations, but we collaborate, we talk regularly, and we look at events and sharing ideas, and sometimes come together like this to do something collaboratively. We all want to engage young people better, be more effective at it. And I think this is our second Four Nations event in the last year or so. And if you have suggestions where you think a Four Nations approach might work better, do let us know. It's a free event. I hope you enjoy it. Just about this webinar setup, as I mentioned already, there is a chat function, which is fine for small talk, but there's a Q&A button down the bottom. That's where we'll be looking for comments, questions to the panel, questions to a specific speaker. I've also set it so that you can interact with those questions. You can even comment yourself if you fancy answering one, or add into one of the questions. So do use the Q&A. That's where we'll be looking for throughout this session, for questions and comments and stuff. It's been recorded, I think I mentioned. So let's get started, shall we? We're going to start with TPAS England. They are going to be talking about shaping tomorrow's homes, why youth engagement is key to leading change. And we've got not one speaker, but three speakers coming from England today. We have Louise Holt from TPAS England. We have Kirsty Peake from Bolton Homes, and Isabella Martini from the charity Reclaim. So three speakers in one. I have no idea what format they're going to go in, but over to you guys, and let's start this discussion.
Great, thanks, David. Yeah, probably the good news for people is that I'm not going to be doing an awful lot of speaking. In fact, I'm not going to be doing any speaking because the experts are definitely Isabella and Kirsty. So absolutely delighted that they both can join us today to do their presentation around how their programme has really targeted and involved young people in such a successful way. So I'm going to hand over to Kirsty and Isabella, and I'm sure they'll introduce themselves and take you through their presentation. So over to you, folks.
Cheers, Louise. Thank you. Won't be a second. I'm just going to share away.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kirsty Peake. I'm a Community Development Officer who works for Bolton at Home.
And I'm Izzy from the Reclaim Project. I started as a youth worker 7 years ago, and I specialise in detached youth work.
So today we're just going to talk you a whistle-stop tour really of our one-year pilot, which began, we've finished our year in October, and we finished with a presentation at the TPAS conference. So we wanted to join with you today just to kind of share what we've done. So we're quickly going to cover a bit of an introduction to Bolton at Home and Reclaim, why we feel that the work is needed with young people, a project overview and how we achieved a successful youth scrutiny panel, the importance of youth work and a young person-centred approach within our scrutiny panel. You're going to hear from some of our young people and what we have achieved with the project.
Kirsty, before you carry on, Debbie Sims has asked, will the slides be shared?
Yeah, we can absolutely share the slides. Yeah, no problem.
We'll sort that out afterwards then, yeah. Thank you.
So Bolton at Home, we all manage and maintain approximately 18,000 properties, which are predominantly based in Bolton, which is a working class town with the usual indicators of deprivation. About 2 years ago, we were approached by our governance team, and they asked the community engagement team to get involved with our customer scrutiny panel. We've made really good progress with our adult scrutiny panel in the last couple of years, but we were really aware that the panel wasn't really representative of our tenant base. I'd had the pleasure of working with Reclaim before on another project, which we did in partnership, that recognised youth voices and the voices of working class young people. We identified that as a partner, they'd be best placed to co-design a model of customer scrutiny that was specifically tailored to the young people that were living in our properties. It's been a really, really amazing journey. The young people have just been amazing. If you'd have said to me, oh, you're going to get 10 young people, one Friday a month and one Saturday a month to come and talk to you about housing, some people are a bit like, but we do it and they really, really enjoy it. Their life experiences and the way in which they experience our services definitely differ from our older customers. They've offered some really good insights and some new ideas which have led to some really tangible changes for us at Bolton at Home. And you'll hear a little bit more about that later.
So the Reclaim Project is a youth leadership organisation that amplifies young working class voices in order to create change. And we do this in two ways: through community, which I look after the community side, and that's all like the first base, so like the level one, hearing what young people want to change in their communities. And then the second stage is around the campaigning. So we teach them all the skills and knowledge then to be able to create the change through the campaigning work. I work in a trauma-informed practice using a holistic approach. And I feel that the way we engage young people through contextualized safeguarding on a strengths-based approach has really, really worked to build those trust-based relationships when it comes to projects and programs. The reason why Reclaim and Bolton at Home came together is because our values and morals really aligned when it came to this piece of work. And I feel that Bolton at Home truly wanted to create that change and youth voice piece. Like Kirsty said, it's had great impact, not only on Bolton at Home, but equally so on the young people. We focused a lot around pastoral support and the personal development of the young person, as well as creating change within policy and procedure at Bolton at Home. And then we're going into our second year in January, which I'm really, really excited for. Yeah. Kirsty?
Sorry, we're just going to give you a quick overview, really. It's just a visual for you to get an idea of what our timeline looked like. So for the first couple of months, we really focused on recruitment. So we did some outreach sessions with young people in our communities. We did door knocking. We spoke to a lot of people and really sold the project, because as Izzy said, it's not just about what we could get as a housing organisation, but actually the skills and knowledge that our young people would get that they could use moving forward. So we delivered a centre-based sessions, as Izzy said, using Reclaim's skills framework around leadership, campaigning, activism. So that took us a couple of months because we wanted the young people to be in the best place that they felt they could be, to kind of really understand what scrutiny was, what it looks like, and kind of like what the expectation was. In February, we took them on a day on the road around Bolton at Home. So we visited the repair service, we visited our customer contact centre, our allocations team, our UCAN centres that help people get back into work and money advice. And we also visited our ASB team. Do you want to take over, Iz?
Yeah, can do. And then after that, we came in for another session to collate what the young people thought about the day on the road, but also what areas the young people wanted to focus on. And they didn't realise there was so much to a housing association and so much offer and opportunity as well for young people, which was really good. And then they decided to look at the repairs policy and the Good Neighbours Guide. The reason why they chose the repairs policy, because they felt that this was having a huge effect on themselves and the families, or themselves if they're living in the single tenancy household, but also the further community. So they changed wait times, how things were done. They really look, and it gave young people an insight into why things may be taking a little bit longer, but also how repairs get done. And quite a lot of young people started then to get interested in that kind of, or maybe this is something I could do for maybe my future career or things like that. And then we finished off with a utopia. And basically what utopia is in an ideal world, what would that look like for young people? So if you could change things within your community, within housing, but within further, what would that look like? And then that gave us ideas then to plan and prepare for our restart in January. Within this time now, it's been huge on pastoral support. This is really, really key for getting it right with young people. If the pastoral support there isn't there, the young people aren't going to be able to trust and build those relationships with you in regards to then doing the project. So for the last few months, we've been developing their personal development. So that's been CVs, jobs, working with Bolton at Home's finance team, support systems, further getting them into further organisations. So that's where we're at now. Now we're going to hear from some of our young people that were on the scrutiny panel.
We can't hear Izzy, I'm afraid. We can't hear it.
Can't hear.
No.
You would need to
So what
share
I'll
with
do,
volume.
everyone,
Yeah. Sorry.
I will send this in the presentation because I'm not 100% sure how to get the sound on. So I'll send it out to everybody's email for the sound so you can listen to the young people.
Have you got more of them? Because all you got to do is reshare again, but tick a box at the top says with sound. So stop sharing, reshare.
Oh, okay.
And as you press the share button at the top, you'll see a with sound option.
It's not giving me that option, I don't think.
Down the bottom corner, then bottom left, share sound. When you first press share.
No, it doesn't give me the option. It's all right. I'm really bad at tech, everyone, so I apologise, but I'll send it out further. There's 2 videos there to watch, and I'll also send out a Why Class Matters video as well that we couldn't pop on this slide.
With them, with Bungu K telling us how she felt it really helped her application to university, gave her self-confidence to put herself out there, and just increased the general knowledge really around us as a housing provider and our policies and procedures. And then Francine is along similar lines, like how did it impact them? It's a shame we can't share it because one of the main videos is from our repairs manager, and he tells you about the impact that working with young scrutiny had. But we'll carry on. So the next bit was the importance of partnership work for us. So we recognised that as a housing organisation, some of us had worked with young people before. However, we really wanted to join with Reclaim for their expertise. So by bringing the 2 together, we felt that we covered really all bases. We shared best practice, solutions to issues that came up along the way, and that definitely helped the young people having both of us.
This is, let me see if I can play it and if it works.
Unless you tick the share with sound button, which is in the bottom left when you first share.
Let me try one more time.
So when you first press the green button, the share screen.
Yeah.
Down the bottom left is a share with sound but tick box before you click on the window.
That's what it doesn't give me, that bottom left.
Okay, I'm not sure what to do on that. As I say, I can see it on. Can other people see it? Share with sound button.
Yeah, I can see it as well, David.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on mine too. Yeah, sorry.
So the green share screen, and then it brings up the box.
And then down the bottom left, it'll be a share sound tick box.
You may need to scroll down to the bottom depending on the size of your
Oh,
screen.
of course, sorry, yes, yeah. Oh, sorry, somebody else is saying it's on the top right. With Teams and Zoom, sometimes it can be different.
Kirsty, I don't know if it's on yours to send across to you or not, but it just says Google Chrome, Windows, an entire screen, cancel and share. That's it. That's all of the options I've got. Not to worry, yeah.
Okay, fine. We can share the video.
Yeah, so basically the video was our one of our repairs managers, and he was saying, so basically they were looking at doing an interim repairs policy. So what we did with the young people was we printed off a lot of repairs policies, looked at them and scrutinised them. And basically our young people came up with, they didn't really understand the wording of our policies. There was words in there that didn't really mean anything to them. They didn't feel like it was user friendly because it was literally just a printed document. So we did about 3 or 4 sessions with Paul to develop this interim repairs policy. And a lot of the young people's suggestions were actually introduced into this repairs policy. It looks, I saw it last week and it looks amazing. It's really interactive, it's really colourful. And the main point that they kind of raised on the repairs policy is that as customers in general, they weren't sure what Bolton at Home were responsible for and what they as customers were responsible for. So one of the main things that we included was a table which basically lists like the common repairs and who is responsible. So that was a really good visual kind of guide for them to see. But we'll definitely get the video shared with you. But like I say, that was Paul's perspective as a manager on how they've changed their policy because of the input from our young people. So we have between 10 and 11, depending on what time we meet, of our young people that come to our sessions. We do give an incentive. We give our young people a £25 voucher every month, and we also make a hot meal or provide a hot meal for them. The age of the young people.
Sorry, Kirsty, just to pick up on that. I think when working with young people and working class young people, they are giving their time over. We go to work, we earn money. They are giving their time on the weekends, on the evenings. So I think it's really important. And the reason why we do give vouchers is because then they have a little bit of something that they get from their time on the panel. Sorry, Kirsty. Over to you.
So our panel ages from age 16, because that is when you can get a tenancy, to 25. But we have a participant that has different needs, so we've extended that to 26. But the idea is that as our young people get older, they will then kind of go into our mainstream, if you like, our adult scrutiny panel. But I'd say the age is mainly a 17 to 26.
The evenings or afternoon, what we did was we just asked young people when it was best for them. And then we came down to one date, but normally, yeah, evenings or afternoons or weekends. So I think it's about preparing to be able to do weekends as well for the young people. And they do come down. It is a 4-hour session and they are there for about 6 hours if they could be. And I think it's really important about breaking down all the barriers so the young people can come. If that means getting travel for the young people, if that means being able to provide foods and snacks. So we always get breakfast and we always have a cooked meal. And then it's about being prepared with the resources and having new pens, absolutely everything there. So when they walk in on the weekend on the sessions, they could just walk in with themselves and crack on.
So we've got some questions in the Q&A. I won't be able to do them all because I want to give the other speakers a chance, but let's do a couple just quickly. I think Simone and Eleanor asked around the recruitment processes. How did you recruit them? I know you've touched on it already, but maybe is there anything else you want to add on how you recruit the people?
I think it did help with youth work on board. But also, you know, Kirsty will say herself, it did take a little bit longer for ourselves. It probably took about 2 months to recruit young people. I was already engaged within Bolton with young people. And then it was about creating relationships with further and further organisations. We really tag teamed the whole project. So Kirsty was on the organisational side, getting all the meetings in. Then we would go to the organisations, do taster sessions, speak to young people. I went out and did detach. We also went out and did outreach work and door knocking. We went into the local youth groups, supported accommodation for young people. So it was a really intense stage, but it is about building those trust built relationships from the beginning. We also did well-being days at the beginning, which brought the team together. So recruitment, yeah, it was for the first year, it did take us a little bit longer. But it is about just getting yourself out there into all the different formats. And if you do have youth workers within your communities, really use their expertise and knowledge in how to engage with young people.
Thank you all. I'm just conscious of time. There are some more questions in the questions and answers tool. So I don't know between Kirsty, Isabella and Louise, whether there's any you can answer whilst the next session's on. Thank you very much for that. Of course, we'll make the slides available. There's been some questions about that. And the recording as well will go with the same download pack. We'll make it on YouTube. So thank you, everybody, for that. And we move on to our next speakers. And our next speakers, we're going across to Northern Ireland and to say good morning to Aidan from Supporting Communities, our sister or cousins in Northern Ireland, and to James, the youth work manager from the Northern Ireland Youth Forum. Again, they're going to do a little talk, use the questions and answer function, and then we'll have a little comfort break after their talk. So over to Aidan and James.
Yes, thank you very much, David. Hopefully you don't need a break after us, but we will be giving you a break after us. So hopefully everybody can see that, and hopefully everybody can hear me and understand me.
We'll need, Bolt, could you stop sharing the slides? That's okay. Yeah, lovely.
So hopefully, let's have a look. That should take everybody's screen now, is it? Yes. Yes, so I might sound, I'm Aidan, you'll see I'm from Supporting Communities. I don't want to spend too much time introducing ourselves, but like David said there, we're cousins, we're getting closer and closer in terms of service we deliver. We share a lot of good practice with our colleagues in England, Scotland and Wales. We are, I suppose, we were the independent tenant organisation for Northern Ireland as appointed by the Department for Communities and the regulator for housing associations here. So and we do deliver a lot of training, a lot of support generally around tenant engagement, tenant participation and community development. So I want to kind of sometimes it's useful to reflect and kind of take a step back. And whenever we're chatting about engagement and participation, we always share this little definition, and I think it's really useful because, you know, yes, it's about providing tenants with an opportunity to have a say about services, but it was pointed out to me a few days ago about providing all tenants, and all tenants involve young people, young residents. They're living in the communities the same as everybody else. So it's really important that organisations have a wee think about how they are engaged and how they're given an opportunity to have a say, because things are changing. The traditional methods, the tenants panels, the tenants forum meetings, they're not necessarily suitable, or they don't necessarily work for everybody. There's all sorts of different barriers involved, and there's all sorts of different objections, and it's for an organisation to really ask the question, well, how can we involve these tenants, and how can we get their views on board? And I'll probably just give you a wee bit of an outline on the fundamental benefits. I'll highlight a few good practice, a few case studies of organisations, how they're utilising their tenants and how they're getting young people on board. Recruitment's a bit of a funny one. It's notoriously difficult. So we'll have a wee chat about that as well. And then, like I said, sometimes it's brilliant just to hear a case study from James. He's from Northern Ireland Youth Forum. He works really, really closely with the housing executive, the largest social housing provider here. So we'll get a wee word from him as well. But I suppose whenever we chat about benefits, and it's really good to hear from Izzy and Kirsty there beforehand about young people being involved in groups, and it's not necessarily a case of one benefiting the other, or one benefiting and the other doesn't really see that. They go hand in hand. Whenever we chat about benefits, and whenever I talk about benefits, the positive things, people are getting involved to kind of achieve things, to improve things, to increase things, but also from an organisational perspective, they'll hopefully see positive things as well. You know, the increase in satisfaction, the improved service delivery, they go hand in hand. And it's not even necessarily just for the people who come along to those meetings or the people who attend. It's indirect users as well, and fundamentally the community will then hopefully benefit too. And also, I'm conscious that not necessarily everybody here on the call, you might be staff members, you might be from a housing association, you might be from council, I'm not too sure. But there is a knock-on effect for staff members as well. The organisation benefits, tenants benefit, but also staff benefit as well. Sometimes whenever we chat about tenant engagement, tenant involvement, the staff members sometimes get forgot about a little bit. Whereas if it can be incorporated into your job role, and you can see yourself facilitating tenant participation activities or events, and hopefully you'll see a wee bit of a benefit yourself. And I'm kind of lucky in that I come from a housing background myself. I was a housing officer in England, in Liverpool, and over the course of again, one of the things we always try and say is it's not something that happens overnight either. It's a process, and I've heard people call tenant participation a journey, which is probably an accurate way to describe it. Over the course of probably, you know, months and years, you'll hopefully see a difference if you can facilitate and you can keep those positive things in mind that you want to achieve, the outcomes that you want to achieve as a staff member, as an organisation, but also in terms of a community, the communities that you serve, the communities that you work in. You'll hopefully want to see them see the benefits too, and there is a lot of knock-on effects. I suppose thinking about here in Northern Ireland, quite fundamentally, and it sounds a bit philosophical sometimes, but the young people and the young tenants and the young residents in the areas that we live in, they will be the future. They'll be the ones who are living in those areas in 10, 15, 20 years. So it's really, really important to get their views and how it's actually being delivered to hopefully improve their satisfaction, to those positive things we talk about, the increased satisfaction, the improved community spirit, but also to improve, you know, your employability opportunities. We know lots and lots of tenants and residents who have sat on panels or even board, have sat on boards, and they use that as a to add to their CV, to add to their employment opportunities, but also to increase confidence. And there is also a large social aspect to engagement and to involvement. So I think without that, none of the other stuff works as well. If you don't have the relationships, if you don't have the interactions, and you're not comfortable having conversations among staff and tenants alike, you're not necessarily going to get as good information. So making it accessible and making yourself accessible as a staff member is really, really important too, and having those conversations and allowing the tenant to share their experiences and to share their values and to share their outcomes that they want to achieve, because they're the ones who are living in the properties and living in the communities, and they know probably better than staff members what that community might need, or what it might improve, or what might benefit from. And a lot of the time it might be down to asking the question, what can we do to help you involve, or get involved, or provide feedback. So there's all sorts of different ways, and sometimes we share this here just to give you a bit of an idea on how different ways, and a lot of this will probably look familiar to folk here, on how organisations and associations and social landlords have used to try and get information, trying to get feedback from tenants. But I suppose in terms of young people and youth approaches, it might look a little bit different. Like I said, it's that historical feeling about tenants panels and tenants forums, where in the reality that might not necessarily suit everybody. So whenever we're chatting about youth approaches, and I was watching the chat there, I've seen someone in the south of England who works with youth neighbourhood wardens, which is brilliant. Youth networks is quite a popular one as well. Digital engagement, especially over the past few years, and this is a really good example of it. We probably wouldn't have had all these people in the same room, because it's accessible and because it's really, really easy, and we can geographically we can log in a lot easier. Vice and junior committees, and like I say, I referenced that point there, junior neighbourhood wardens, being part of consultations, events and incentives. So an important one is about offering opportunities, structured versus unstructured. You know, we hear quite a lot that the uptake and recruitment and the events that are probably informal and more relating to the arts, crafts, sports, music, media, that kind of thing is a lot better received than the structured, and which is actually brilliant to see that Kirsty and Izzy have had really good outcomes from the scrutiny panel, because that would be probably a more structured and formalised approach. But I'm going to reference a few as well, actually, that organisations have used, you know, fun days, events, and sometimes that can be seasonal, whether it's Easter, summer, Halloween, and I know Christmas is coming up as well, which is great. Sometimes we find that those events can be a really good opportunity to get that feedback or to get a bit of contribution. Yes, the structured and the formalized approaches are very, very important, but sometimes the best information you can get is over a cup of tea and a biscuit. Sometimes just have a little 5-minute chat or a 10-minute chat with a tenant, and how you get them in could be through those events, through those activities, through those little incentives. In terms of incentives there, sometimes it's very difficult, and sometimes it's different from area to area and from community to community, or from estate to estate, because incentives can be internal or external, and sometimes it's about trying to get across, okay, we're going to internally we're going to try and improve something for yourself, we're going to benefit you, we're going to try and change things, or externally, do we offer vouchers, do we offer lunches, do we offer dinners, all sorts of different things like that. So it's about trying to get that balance, and there's no one way that's probably correct, because different organizations do differently. Different organizations have different property types, different areas, different communities that they serve. So that's going to be different for different organizations in different areas, and for different staff members as well. I want to just kind of quickly show a few. I'm not advertising, or I'm not showing different organizations here or advocating for, but there's different approaches that organizations here have used. And I suppose looking at the in the two corners here, Newington and Clanmill Housing, these are kind of community development approaches in terms of improving education. There's a Strive and Thrive programme with Clanmill, and Newington's annual bursary for students. These are to help and improve educational opportunities. And I also like to reference Choice as well here. If anybody's aware of the Rio Ferdinand Foundation, Choice are the first housing association in Northern Ireland to have signed up to the foundation to work in partnership. And that involves, I think it's around 100 students as well, receiving bursaries for, or receiving training over a 6 or 8 week course. Also Radius, who have a youth panel up and running, they have met and they will be meeting in the future, and panel members from that who are also volunteering in other activities and other schemes and other events, especially over Christmas, I think. So there are different ways of looking at it. And I mentioned there about the formal versus informal. Sometimes it's really good to look at the events and activities as well, where Conswater have a Meet Your Neighbour event and a cultural sharing cultural awareness event. And even if looking at ARC here, again, summer schemes, summer events and activities, those are really, really good ways of getting people out, getting, again, young people involved. And in 5 minutes and 10 minutes, a wee conversation at these events can get some really good information. Or even in terms of recruiting, you could ask them to come along to another meeting, or you could ask them to come along to a youth panel meeting or a forum meeting. So those can be really, really good opportunities as well. And it's also useful just to remember why people are there, why people come along, or why people give up their time. I know it's probably going to be mentioned here about volunteers. Volunteer time is very, very valuable, but it's very important for an organisation to value that as well. So people normally get involved to improve things, to increase things, to maybe provide something that wasn't there before, or to change their services, or to change their community. So hopefully the person sitting across the table, or the staff member sitting across the table, or the tenant from another area sitting across the table will have those same things in mind. So it's about trying to get them together and get their feedback and get that conversation going. But again, you're only going to have those conversations if they trust you and they want to bring that to you, and they want to have those chats with you, and build that relationship with you. So it's very, very important. I've kind of stolen a wee thing from James here. I do apologise, James. This is a flyer, a recruitment flyer for the youth forum themselves. Recruitment is a notoriously difficult thing to do, to try and get new people on board, and again, it's about trying to get across that message. You have an opportunity to change things. You can provide us feedback that will affect you directly, affect your community directly, and that's where it kind of comes into where it's up to the staff members and up to an organisation on how you actually go about that, whether it's going to be a structured application process or a flyer that you sign up to, or whether it could be informal, a 5-minute talk or a 10-minute talk on what you want to do. And actually, do you know what, we will come on board, or we will want to do that, or we do want to come along. That can be just as effective as the structured approach too. And this isn't necessarily, I shared this actually, and this isn't necessarily for young people either. I actually think this is quite applicable to myself. No matter what an organisation is trying to do, I think it's really, really important that these points are met too, that the message is clear, what you want to do. I actually hate reading technical language, the jargon and abbreviations, because sometimes that will just create more confusion and create more questions. It does for me anyway. So whenever you are trying to get the word out there, get message out there, trying to get people on board, make sure it's really, really clear, make sure there's no confusing words, confusing paragraphs, make sure the methods are appropriate. And how to find that out is asking. As staff members, as an organisation, the chances are all your tenants or all your young people living in properties, they will have an opinion, they will have something to say, they will have a bit of a contribution, they may have some feedback, and they might not just be as comfortable to do that. So it might come down to the asking the question and introducing. I know for frontline staff members, and I know this from experience as well, you've got a massive opportunity there, because for a lot of folk and for a lot of tenants, you are probably the organisation. The perception of the organisation is based on the conversations they may have with you. So you've got a really, really important opportunity there to try and get the feedback and try and get the contributions on board. And I suppose whenever we share this, it takes it from everybody. It takes it from an organisation, it takes it from staff members, and it takes it from tenants as well. Committed, and you'll hear again probably about embedding it in the culture of the organisation. Tenant participation is everybody's role, and if everybody's working together towards those positive things that I talked about, hopefully it can be as effective and efficient as possible. But it will take it from everybody. Perspective is a wonderful, wonderful thing, and I do love this actually, because whenever I shared this one time, sometimes people will see, the more people you get looking at a problem, some people might see the problem as the box as a problem. This is a problem, but the more people you have looking at a problem, the better information you will get. But actually, one time I shared this not too long ago, and it was a young person, and they said, well, that box might be that positive outcome that you wanted to achieve, the change that you wanted to achieve, and also, so the more people you have looking at that, wanting to achieve that, wanting to improve that, and wanting to contribute to it, the better off you're going to be as an organisation, which kind of makes more sense. I think that's a good wee representation in that we're looking at the positive, not the negative. It's not a problem. That's hopefully an outcome, and the more people looking at that will give you as an organisation, as staff members, better information, and looking towards the future, better service delivery. We have a bit of a strapline, and I'm nearly finished. We have a bit of a strapline, I suppose, about empowering communities. That's kind of what we try and do. We try and empower communities, tenants, residents to be the change themselves, to change their services, to change what's happening. So that's where staff members will have a really, really important opportunity to do that. Because without the trust and without the relationship, they mightn't necessarily want to. They mightn't bring issues to you. They mightn't provide feedback. So as much as possible, the strategies and the policies and procedures are really, really important to involve tenants and to involve young people. But the relationship building, the interactions, the conversations you have are almost just as important. And what you do with that information is very, very important as well. And you'll see I shared a few wee photos there and things. Being able to capture it, being able to capture what's happening and what's going on and how you're involving, that can be really valuable too. Getting the word out there. I know at the minute, social media is very, very popular with the likes of Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or X as it is now. Those are really, really good ways of capturing what's happening because they're instant, they get it out there, and it can hopefully encourage more participation, it can encourage more, but there's also the traditional, sometimes whenever we're chatting about young people, you know, all the digital side of things comes in, and that's true, but it's important not to forget about the traditional methods of getting the word out there, the word of mouth, the newsletters, the talking to your neighbours and talking to the person down the street. That can be really just as valuable as well, because sometimes if someone finds themselves in a position that they're changing service or they're improving things for their area, what's the chances they might tell the person down the street or they might tell their neighbour, and that can be a powerful thing as well. But hopefully as staff members, as housing professionals, as tenant support officers or housing officers or whatever it might be, you've got a massive opportunity to hopefully empower and enable and to engage with tenants, especially young people, whenever we're trying to get their views. And I suppose philosophically, they're the ones who are going to be shaping our future. So let's try and get their views on board, because they're going to be best placed to let us know. Well, I think that's me. So like David said there, everything's going to get sent out, or our slides are going to get sent out. So these are wee links to our social media outlets as well, just to have a wee look. You can keep up to date with what's happening. We try as much as possible to get the word out there whenever we're out and about, especially now that we're not always online and it's not always Zoom sessions, especially whenever we are out and about. So I just kind of highlight these and let you know, and I'll have a wee look. I'm going to pass over. I'm not going to take up any more of James's time. I'm going to pass over, but I'll have a wee look at the chats and the question and answers as well. But otherwise, thank you so much, and I'll pass over.
Thank you, Ian. I appreciate that. I'm a wee bit conscious that there is reach from right across the UK, and I would dare say a lot of people in here haven't heard of the Northern Ireland Youth Forum. So I'm going to give a brief overview quickly, and then talk about where we fit into this wee small speck in terms of youth engagement and social housing. So the Youth Forum was established in 1979 with the purpose of having youth voice heard in arenas where decision makers are able to make change based on issues related to young people. Want to the next slide?
Oh yeah, sorry.
So this is where it talks about our vision and our purpose. All these slides are going to be available. I'm just conscious that I have 5 minutes, so I know I can ramble on. If you just don't mind, I would like to talk about more specific about the teams and then my role within the housing and homelessness team. So we have 4 main teams within the Youth Forum, and it's the participation team, which oversees our executive committee. Our executive committee are responsible for making every decision related to the organisation, right from staff appointments, policy changes. They have the final say and all that. They govern the organisation. The transport team are responsible for trying to push and lobby for change regarding rural transport. In this Belfast city centre, transport's pretty good. But when you go outside the city, the transport is poor. You're talking maybe 2 hours, 3 hours at times for a bus, and they're trying to push for that change within that arena. The mental health team as well are really lobbying for a mental health curriculum within schools where there's a taught subject just as well as physical education. The only difference in there's no testing because they don't want to add stress and more worry to students' lives. This has got a 7-year plan which was just proposed the other day, with a lot of MLAs there and on board. So hopefully that can start taking a wee bit of shape. And then the housing homelessness team, which is the biggest team, it is made up of 10 staff. But within the housing homeless team, there's a lot of wee smaller sub teams as well. We've got a sustaining tenancies worker whose sole focus is working with local housing executive tenants and ensuring that they sustain their tenant agreement. The work that she will do will be more focused on the person rather than the actual tenant itself. So she's dealing with issues regarding sort of the personal lives that will then allow them to maintain their tenant and also keep the house executive off their back. So it's a good partnership there. Then we have the RLP team, which focuses on working with young people based in supported accommodation, so hostels and as I said, supported accommodation. Their focus is then working with young people to look at their points, their allocated points. Why have they got such few points? And then maybe where can they challenge the housing executive in or attaining more points to look at housing, looking at place named housing. But also that's done in a project-based way where youth work comes in. So they will do a lot of drop-in stuff, but also more focused group work around the development of young people. And then my last, the program that I'm working on is the Northern Ireland Housing Executive Youth Forum. And this is where we are aiming. Our vision is to have young people placed in arenas where they are underrepresented within the housing executive. So the housing executive identified when they were doing their strategy some demographics that were underrepresented in the central housing forum and the local housing community networks, and young people fitted in that category. So the responsibility and the partnership of the Northern Ireland Youth Forum then is to encourage young people who have a passion around housing first and foremost to then sit in these arenas and represent other young people regarding housing issues. There's a phasing of the program. There's a two-step phase. The first step is all around capacity building. So a lot of young people won't be ready right off the bat to go in and sit in these arenas and challenge older people. The average age in these arenas are maybe 50 plus. With Ian said, a lot of jargon and language that they wouldn't understand. So what we don't want to do as an organisation is to put them in and set them up to fail. So the first phase, 6 months, is all around capacity building and understanding the structures of the housing executive, central housing forum specifically, and then the local level. Once they have that understanding through actually supported partnership working with supporting communities, Aidan comes in and facilitates some of that training. The idea then going into phase 2 is they'll shadow some of the local CDOs, community development officers, and some of the local group relations officers, and then attend these local HCNs with the point to find their voice so they can represent other young people. Within the central housing forum, there's smaller subgroups: rural, maintaining your tenancy, LGBTQ plus, welfare reform, poverty, and then wherever their passion lies, they'll then attach themselves to their working group with the idea again of representing young people across the spectrum. They then filter that back. We meet again as a smaller subgroup and filter everything that's been said in these working groups, hear from their peers and bring it back and propose maybe some changes that could be made regarding housing. The small steering group are then going into other local community organisations and hearing feedback from them, and also doing some surveys and stuff to present some research and evidence whenever they go to the central housing forum. This is only the second year. In terms, someone mentioned earlier on about recruitment. Recruitment year 1 was a lot more difficult than year 2, and they didn't say it word of mouth. My first year in the organisation was last year, and I found it extremely difficult. I didn't really understand the program. I didn't know what I was sort of selling to young people in a sense. So a lot of leaflet drops within the organisations, promotional videos was done. But the second year, it was a lot easier because they were able to see the transition from year 1 to year 2. A lot of people in year 2 were then going, right, listen, this is what we've done year 1 and this is what we're doing now. I think this would really suit. And actually this year we'll have more of a region-wide scope with representation across Northern Ireland, whereas last year it was mainly based in Belfast, where the odd 1 or 2 outside. And the idea then is it's like a conveyor belt. So once year 2 is completed, they're settled into these working groups. Then the next year 2 are going to go in and then continuing on with, say, 5 years down the line, you're going to have the majority. Well, not the majority, but you're going to have a good representation of young people in making decisions regarding young people and housing. And that's obviously where we filter in. It's our responsibility as an organisation that youth participation is represented in issues that are relevant to them, and housing was definitely high on priority list. I think really that's all from me. Is there any questions?
Right. Sorry, I didn't flick through quick enough there. There's a few photos and stuff there too, James.
Right.
Sure.
Yes. So the far left hand photo where I'm in a bit of a green t-shirt, that is the housing team. There's a few not there in that photo, but that's the ones who are making the magic happen. That's the ones who are on the ground, doing all the hard work. In terms of something that I missed actually, Aidan, was the wee campaign that we're currently doing. So obviously it's Homeless Awareness Week this week. As of yesterday, we started a 5-day online campaign highlighting the issues that young people are facing. So Homeless Not Helpless, that is the campaign. I would really encourage everyone to follow the socials. There's going to be a lot being posted over the next 5 days. Highlight the issues, promote the services that Northern Ireland Youth Forum are doing, and then some inspirational stories to highlighting some of the strengths and successes of our team. Yeah, that's
I think it's in flyer there, isn't it? Yeah.
that's the photograph that is that we're all following. This is sort of like our theme photograph. But yeah, I would encourage everyone to follow the social handles. It's going to be populated quite heavily over the next 5 days with some of the amazing work that the housing and homelessness team are doing.
Yeah, I actually was yesterday. We were chatting, James, and I was commenting on how much is going on your see on X, or I keep calling it Twitter, but it's X now. It's great to see because sometimes stuff gets lost. Sometimes if something's happening and either somebody forgets or it doesn't get up there, sometimes that can be lost. That momentum can be lost, and that word, that message can get lost. So, with the youth forum, it's brilliant because there's maybe 3 or 4 things happening a day with those different teams and with the different people you're working with. And it's all getting up there. It's all up there. So if anybody has, hopefully this might boost the numbers as well for you as a few followers. But have a look because there's going to be an awful lot happening this week, which is great.
Just while Helen looks, see if there's any questions. I'm interested, James, a couple of photographs back, you were in quite a grand room or something. It was quite fancy. It looks impressive to me anyway, up the top there. Did that intimidate, or did it, I sometimes see it opposite, bringing young people into places of power can also empower them as well and make them feel much more engaged with whatever that is? Or is it just a meeting room that just looks fancy? I don't know.
that would be up in the Stormont Chamber and stuff.
Right.
A lot of prep work goes into this. Obviously, this is the final outcome, but before that, you're maybe talking 5-6 months worth of put in by the staff. This would be the participation team. So we've got, when you talk about participation, obviously it's a spectrum. We've got young people who are only coming on to the participatory spectrum, and that may be the ones who we're working with in youth homelessness. And then it's a whole process to get to where these young people are represented. This is our executive committee. So they will do research and propose that research to key decision makers, with asks coming out of that to hold accountable. So this is a whole process from the start right through, and maybe you're talking a couple of years. I know, like, based on the program last year for the NIHE Youth Forum, we've got 2 members of our previous group who are now in the current executive, which runs every 3 years. So that's a 3-year term, and 2 past participants are now represented at the highest level within the organisation. They hold the staff account, these young people, but also as well hold decision makers regarding issues that are really relevant to young people.
Good. Excellent. Is there anything at the moment, Helen, I need to pick up? So we're due a 5-minute break at the moment, if that's okay.
Nothing in the Q&A at the moment.
We're getting off lightly, are we?
So, yeah, I'm sure we'll be back. Yeah. So, everybody, we've got a great presentation next from TPAS Scotland. I was just going to suggest 5-minute break, just to recharge your cuppers and things like that. Should we say 11:05? Is that okay? 11:04. Come on. 5 minutes. Let's get back, and we've got a great presentation next. So thank you both, and we'll take a break.
Cool. Thanks.
I'm going to work it out a pause. Right. Hopefully you heard that. So welcome back, everybody. We're now on to our 3rd and final speaker, and again, not just one speaker, but 3-in-1 package you've got here from Scotland. We've got TPAS Scotland, we've got Evelyn, Tony, both from TPAS Scotland, and Jonathan from Elder Park Housing Association in Govan, in Glasgow. And they're going to be talking about the Junior Community Voice Champion project. So over to you guys, and welcome.
Well, hello, and as you can see, the delegates from Scotland are all very young. But definitely putting into the youth element is and reducing the age bracket significantly. Is that not right, Jonathan?
Ish.
Mentally, anyway. I just wanted to say thanks very much to Helen, particularly for all her hard work in putting this all together. It's been really successful. Thank you very much. I think for us in TPAS Scotland, it's all about conversations, and it's about finding the right way of having those conversations. We all have our little picadillos. We all like our to do things in certain ways. And really, I suppose what I like about what Jonathan's been doing is he's trying to fit it into what the people in Govan, the young people in Govan, want to do, and have those conversations with them in ways that make sense to them. So thanks very much for taking part. And Jonathan, on you go.
Okay, well, I'm going to attempt a little bit like Kirsty and Isabella. I'm not an IT specialist, so I'm going to attempt to share my screen with you. Let's hope it works. Oops, right. Right, okay. So bear me just 1 second, please, and I can get full screen for you. And let's present. Right. So can you all see that? Is that okay?
Perfect, Jonathan. Cheers.
Lovely. Thank you. All right. So my name is Jonathan Giddings-Reid, and I work for Elder Park Housing Association. We're a small community-based housing association based in Govan, which is in the south of Glasgow. It's a challenging area. It's got its challenges. It's quite high in the index of depravity, and yeah, it's strange because it's got a wonderful community feel, but lots of hardship through different changes in employment, with the docks all closing and then new things starting. So that gives you a little bit of context about where I work now. I'm from England, I'm from London, and I've been in a housing sector or housing environment for about 35 years. A little bit like Aidan, I started off as a housing officer, and then I've been all over the gaff within housing. And about 10 years ago, I started to specialise in community engagement and predominantly working on large inner city estates that in England are called sink estates, or were called sink estates, that had real challenging problems. So I really broke my teeth on that, and I really enjoyed it. So I've come up here, and I've been up here for 5 years. And the reason I wanted to speak to you today was just to share with you really what we have been trying to do to engage with young people. And similarly to what the others have said, Adam, James, Kirsty and Isabella, I take bits of all of what you've just said, and it really makes sense to me. What we've tried to do here, and what I'm going to take you through with the presentation, is perhaps looking at a different demographic of young people, because certainly I've fallen foul of perhaps focusing my events on teenagers, older teenagers, and up to mid-20s, and that's been really challenging, with some success and sometimes not. But this project I'm going to share with you is primarily about working with very young children in primary schools to get them to start thinking about what is community and where their voice sits within community. So a bit hackneyed, I know, but as with everything, once upon a time, our story starts with me having I guess reflecting on who I was engaging with and how I was doing that, and and I was really sort of like ticking loads of boxes in terms of yeah, old people, yeah, BMI, yeah, LGBTQ, yeah, and I'm thinking, well, actually, we are engaging young people, but are we really engaging young people? Certainly in the organisation that I work for. And I did a little bit of reflecting on and looking back on what we had done, and I couldn't really see anything that was aimed at, as I say, very young children. So I decided to talk about this with the schools in our local area. And what we decided to do was we decided to sort of sweeten them up a little bit, if you like. Okay, so the schools across the UK, really, really busy, got loads of challenges. But I really wanted to get into the schools because I felt that that would be a really good, safe space for me to meet young people and to start looking at this idea of community and having a voice within your community, and specifically having a voice within our organisation so we were more relevant. So what we did was we decided to be even more proactive by engaging with partners, and that in the main was our local schools. And I wanted to build a relationship built on trust. So a lot of this was about schmoozing the senior management team, going into the school and being confident and being professional and engaging in a way with the school that made them feel that we were, you know, a legit organisation, people that could be trusted. So, you know, we started having some discussions about how we might support the school. Some of that was financial and working in partnership, as Aidan pointed out. We do a lot of partnership working, but working in partnership with our contractors, we were able to get me some money out of them, and we shared that amongst the 4 primary schools in the Govan area, and that was through sports vouchers. So that gave me a route in. You know, we want to give you some money. By the way, can we talk to you about such and such? So we spoke a little bit about what their priorities are, and actually a lot of what their priorities are reflect what priorities are in the wider, you know, community. You know, litter, you know, antisocial behaviour, car parking, that sort of thing. So to me, it made perfect sense that we start bringing these 2 strands of the equation together. So I wanted to think about also, and I shared this with the school that I went into, the schools that I've been into, and I wanted to set out really why we wanted to do this. And I wanted to be really honest, okay? So in this matrix here, you'll see that, you know, primarily for me, because it's the right thing to do, you know, we need to be involving as diverse a number of voices as we can. And that also means people that may be only 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they have a view, you know, that should be listened to. I wanted to acknowledge and I wanted to value a young voice. And then from a business perspective, I guess, you know, I wanted for us to be innovative and engaging. And, you know, we are, for all intents and purposes, hopefully dealing with people that are going to become our customers of the future. So I want them to understand who Elder Park Housing are, what we do, why we're a great place to come and be your landlord, or why we're a great place to work. And I was thinking as well, in terms of the whole type of service delivery and service design, I wanted to make sure that our customers of the future were influential in delivering or designing services that might be around when they join us. So how did we deliver this? And as I spoke a little bit earlier on, you know, it was about building a relationship with the school, and that was about talking to the senior leadership team, making it worth their while. So when I say making it worth their while, the vouchers came in really handy as a way in. But actually, can I help with the agenda of the school, as well as trying to deliver and find out what I want to find out? So we did a lot of talking about what I wanted to deliver and what they wanted to see delivered. And that came all together in a lesson plan. And again, for me, going into schools, part of the important part of the relationship is always providing them with a professional front. They see that we are credible professionals that really can deliver something that will complement school life. So these next couple of slides just show you a very basic lesson plan that I pulled together. I went online, saw what lesson plans, what they looked like, and I thought, right, well, I won't reinvent reinvent the wheel. I will just adapt this. And so what we've done here is we called it Love Our Community, a lesson plan about loving our community. Did an overview for the senior leadership team, and then I did a grid of, you know, what we want to do through objectives, information, activities, resources. Again, so I wanted the school to understand that I'd really thought this through and that this was really something that I was taking very seriously. And the last bit is a summary, and, you know, and this will all be shared in my slides if you guys want to think about how you might want to live up to a school. So we get through the barrier of building those relationships with the schools, getting them into the school, getting some buy-in from my organisation about my time and why we should be doing this. And so it comes to us meeting with young people and carrying out sessions. So over the course of 2 days, I met with, I think, it was over 220 young people in about 5 or 6 different lessons. And I went in, and it was very basic. The first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to get young people thinking about what is community. And I have to say to you, and I'm sure many of you have found this, my perception of the engagement from very young people was way off mark. It really, really was. In that, these young people were really engaged in their surroundings. They really understood things around, climate change and, the cost of living and, what it's like to feel poor and what it's like to feel lonely. It was mind-blowing. Some of the conversations that we were having. So what we did in this session is we had to look at what you think community is, how can we make our community better, and what do we think that will make a wonderful community. And what I invited the young people to do, we had these on great big sheets on the whiteboard, and they were all given sticky notes and pens and colouring pens and what have you. And I said, look, if you want to use a word, you use a word. But if you want to draw me a little picture about what you think is relevant to any of these, so what can make a wonderful community, for instance. If you want to draw a little picture of what would be in your wonderful community, let's do that. And it was really, really interesting and really eye-opening, because a lot of things that I don't know, I just didn't expect to hear things about litter picking, keeping dogs on leads, when you walk past someone, say hello or good morning. It was really enlightening and really uplifting. So we did this session where we had the clouds, the dream clouds, and they put all their bits and pieces on there. And then I asked them to think about, okay, this is what you think makes a great community, how your community is. How do we communicate this? How do we make sure that the people around us know what's happening in our community, or they can see how great things are? So we had a conversation around, what do you think communication is? What do you think is great communication, and how we can share communication? And we sort of managed that in the same sort of way in terms of the boards. I will share this with you, and I've shared this before. What was really interesting in these sessions was I'd gone through about 4 or 5 classes, I think. It was one of the last classes that I was taking, and there was this little boy, and he just really wasn't engaging, and he really wasn't, he didn't seem very interested at all. And I was like, so I sort of said to him, I said, how's things? Are you enjoying today? And he looked at me and he sort of just went, this is so boring. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was really, really shocked and really affronted. How dare he, And then I thought, hold on a second. I said, oh really? I said, why do you think what makes this boring? What do you think I could do? Because I think you've got a point, And he said, can't we make this into some sort of game, a video game where, you get points for doing stuff in the community? And I was like, this boy is a genius. So, it was amazing that out of something that could have been quite negative, actually, when he was encouraged to share his ideas, he came up with this fantastic idea, which we're now developing, looking at how we could develop a game or some sort of app that young people could link into and either play or use or what have you. So that was, a really lovely outcome of that. And we are now working with the school. We've moved on to phase 2 now, which is looking at bringing together all that information, but also identifying an editorial panel within the school. So we, as a community anchor organisation, get loads of information coming to us about what's happening in school, in the community. But that doesn't always get to the school. It goes to all of our other partners that we're working with, and it goes to our tenants, but it doesn't go into school. So what we've decided we're going to do is we're going to create, after Christmas break, we're going to create an editorial panel, 2 or 3 children from different year groups, and we are going to set up an email address where whenever I get community information about an event that's happening, a food bank drive, a fair that's going on, I send it through to the editorial panel. And then the wonderful thing about this is the editorial panel with the teacher will decide what campaigns they want to promote within school, what's relevant to school, what might help other school pupils, and what might help their families. So they decide on the campaign they want to take forward in the school, but they will also look at how can we make sure that everyone in school that is using a myriad of different community languages is enabled to understand and create information they can take home so mum, dad, carer can understand what's happening outside of school as well. So for us, it's a really great way to get young people engaged in what's going on in the local community. But a little bit going back to what Aidan was saying about having those informal conversations, we're hoping that those young people will go home and say to mum, dad, carer, this is happening, that's happening. Look, I've made this poster and it's in Polish or it's in Croatian or it's in, what have you. And that will encourage and engage more people, hopefully, to get involved. All the while, reinforcing to young people that their voice is really, really important. And they don't have to do anything other than just talk about what is going on. But if they want to, they can have a say in how things are delivered. Because what we're going to encourage in the third phase of this project is reflection and a critical evaluation. So young people saying, this last 2 months, you sent us through loads of information, but there was nothing relevant to us. And we want to see this happen. We want to see that happen. Then I can take that back to my partners, and it starts informing what we and my partners are probably doing in the local area. So what next? We want to continue to work with the 2 schools that we're working with at the Govan campus. And as I've just said, we're going to create our junior editorial panel. This will then lead us into something we're going to call our youth community collective, which will be a bit of a hybrid of primary school and senior school. We already work very well with Govan High, developing the young workforce through the Chamber of Commerce, and we do Work Aware and all lots of bits and pieces to help young people that are coming to the end of school and transitioning into work. So what I would like to try and do with Govan High is to get young people to look at this whole design of a gaming app type thing that we could then roll out. We're also engaging with most of the community groups that are operating within Govan through the different organisations that are specialised in being able to do that. And we want to continue to do that so that representation is ongoing. So to do all this, how we're going to do it, and what we've decided and committed to is that we're going to look, and again, as my colleagues James, Kirsty, Isabella and Aidan said, look at a range of ways that we can do this. Primarily for me, it's wherever there are young voices and wherever they want to be heard. So that means sometimes, all times actually, coming out of our office and going into an environment that feels safe and appropriate for that young person. I've been doing this job for a very long time, and I cannot get young people into the office for a myriad of reasons. So going out, I do a lot of work with street youth workers. So I go out on the street and I'll talk to young people on the street. I don't wear any of my liveried stuff. I just go out there and I'm, having those informal conversations as Aidan pointed out. So with that, we hope to get lots more feedback from young people in an informal way, and we can start bringing all the dots together. But for me, what's been really important for this process is to give, I think, personally, a population, a group of people that are very rarely listened to. And I think it's not only morally incumbent on us to do this, I think from my experience, and I've been doing this job a long time, I learned so much during those sessions. It was invaluable. So I know we said we're going to do questions through the chat thingy. So, but just thank you very much for listening to me, and thank you very much for the other guys that have spoken. I found it really empowering. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jonathan. Thank you.
Is there anything you've learned, Tony? Do you want to add or anything? Or I'm putting you on the spot there. This is descriptive, by the way.
No. For me, the important thing is to have those conversations, to see it as part of what we do in our day-to-day lives, that we listen to all, we talk to all, we share with all, and we really need to change our view of who we talk to.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think a common thread there as well is obviously that we think we know things that we actually don't. When you talk to young people, you find out lots of things that are very basic often, but that we've totally missed. So it just demonstrates how crucial it is that we actually do hear the voices of young people and you know, as Jonathan said there, he's working with primary school age children, but it's, you know, basically 5 to 25 or whatever, 26 maybe, is that sort of age group that we seem to be missing out on. So I think that's just a common thread that's run through everything we've heard today. So thanks very much, everybody.
And just quickly, David, I think, you know, I saw one of the questions, I don't want to rebut it directly, but in terms of our approach to youth engagement, we don't just target our tenants, because the way that we look at things is our tenants live within a community, and we want that community to be vibrant and safe and you know, exhilarating and exciting. So to do that, we sometimes have to step out of our role as landlords and say, actually, we're going to invest the money in the wider community so that actually our tenants have a better quality of life. So from a business perspective, they don't leaving us with void properties, turnover isn't so high, rents are paid because people they like where they live, they might be more engaged with education and work, and young people hopefully aren't causing antisocial behaviour in the way in which they might do if they weren't being engaged. So we take a bit of a wider picture approach.
Excellent. And I think that will probably resonate with a lot of people here today. I know there's people here from the Rhondda and Grŵp Cynefin, you know, that community approach, I think, not just tenants, I think, or children of tenants, I think is really important, isn't it? Helen, I'm going to just ask, you've been looking at the questions. Is there anything specifically we want to raise at this point? I've got a couple of questions for all the panel. Maybe we ask them all to come back on screen, if that's okay. Is there any specifically for Scotland, or should we open it up to everybody?
Debbie's asked the question, how does the work that you're doing link in with the direction of your business and gathering feedback relative to services that are provided by them? So, yeah.
What we do as part of the interactions that we do undertake, we do normally do very quick surveys. I don't like that word because they're normally just conversations, as Tony was saying. And we do try and identify if that person is a tenant of ours or if they live in one of our properties. So we try and gather that information. But to be honest with you, Helen, it isn't really as important to us as starting to make these connections. I think as we go forward, we might want to develop, you know, dealing or interacting with our tenants a bit more. But at the moment, because we've just started this process, it's about a community approach.
Okay, so that sort of links into a question that was asking, do you know what percentage of the children are actually tenants, or do you not gather that info?
We will, but I will be honest with you, given this has been a bit of a softly, you know, breaking myself into this. Once we've got this up and running, and it's really coming together and it's gaining momentum, what I would like to do is perhaps standardize it a little bit more and then have a little bit more feedback, a little bit more robust information that we can then use. But I think year one, I just really wanted to establish a connection and show that we were credible partners.
Great, thanks, Jonathan. Thank you.
While you're looking, Helen, I wouldn't mind asking the panel if they've changed any of their digital engagement. As you know, in TPAS Cymru, we track about 15 young people and their social media and how they engage digitally. And it became quite clear, some of you heard me talk about this before, I've got a little talk on it, you know, things like Facebook, it's for old people now, you know, they're just not interested. You know, we're using a lot of Instagram adverts, geo-targeting specific areas of Wales to target through Instagram. Reddit is a really popular platform for us. We've had targeting using Reddit subreddits, they call it. We had a third of our tenant pulse recently was under 30 and came from Reddit using their ad platform. So I just wondered, is anybody using any digital engagements to engage young people, and what were they using? Whilst Helen, see if there's any more comments or anything.
We haven't just got to TikTok yet. I know TikTok's a really popular one, but I don't think we've really, funnily as well, actually, depending on where we're working, we do a little bit of work across the border as well, and approved housing bodies there seem to use other stuff than we do. You mentioned about Facebook there, and we use Facebook and X quite a lot, but we also have LinkedIn, but we don't probably use LinkedIn as much as we either should, or I don't think for some reason the organisations here don't. But as soon as we cross the border, you know, LinkedIn's really popular, and it's a really good way to connect. And I know we're talking about young people here and things, but even staff members of housing associations, or approved housing bodies as they call them, they seem to use that an awful lot more. But I suppose the only constant is change. You might, like, whenever I was starting off as a housing officer, we were making Facebook groups. We had all sorts of stuff happening, and that's where we got our stuff out to. But it's always changing, isn't it? It's always evolving. So I think we're always asking the question, well, what's next, or what's coming up next? What's the next popular thing that we can kind of embrace? You know.
You know, it worries me. There's Aidan talking about Facebook when he was young and when he was starting off. I was on quills. It was just, it's amazing just how quickly things change.
Yeah. And I think that's part of our annual tracking of channels, seeing what's trending and what's diminishing in our tracking of young people. And we're kind of fascinating to adapt. We also notice that certain things like TikTok will be great for getting information out, but people won't click through to a survey or something like that because they want to stay on TikTok. They'll watch your video or maybe comment, but that's about it. And I think it's about what you want those digital channels to do, what you're looking for them to achieve, I think. But sorry, I'm not a panelist here, sorry.
David, I was just going to briefly say that one of the problems that I have is not understanding all the different types of social media that are out there. I understand them. I don't actually engage with them. But I think as a business, we're really wedded to Facebook. And when you mention anything else within the business, could we try even Instagram Reels? It's all, governance and this and that. And I think there's a real bit of work that could be done by TPAS generally in perhaps prodding certainly housing professionals and housing providers into, look, guys, if you really want to engage with young people, Facebook is not going to cut it. And I think, that's the challenge. I've been in 4 different organizations up here and tried to get other social media platforms implemented, and it's been a blank no. We're not going on TikTok, we're not doing this, we're not doing that, too much staff time, so yeah, perhaps TPAS could help the industry by being a bit of a social media champion.
For our repair survey and for the young people to sign up to our youth scrutiny, we use QR codes quite a lot.
Yep.
So we tend to get much more interaction from our younger tenants with surveys because they just scan the QR code and everything's there ready for them to go.
But where are you putting those QR codes? Is it on posters, flyers, or?
Yeah, we put them on posters, we put them on flyers, we put them on Instagram, we put them on Facebook, pretty much everywhere we can, really. Our youth scrutiny have asked if we can do a TikTok next year, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. We'll see.
I think one thing, David, with that though, is if we are expecting young people to engage digitally, it's about making it accessible for young people. So if they haven't got the equipment to be able to do that at home, they come in every Thursday to complete things online or within sessions. So I think it's really important that we do have the accessibility. So maybe it is about going in for an extra fund to be able to provide young people with the equipment needed to access online if you're taking it online.
I think Facebook has become less and less popular. I know, having spoken to a lot of tenants, they've said, why would I want my landlord to have access to all my activities, everything I do? So they're probably, I think it's definitely moving away from being a source for two-way communication. I know some landlords are going down the route of community platforms that are specific to the landlord, but I think probably things like TikTok, although there's not scope for two-way communication, it's a way of seeing who's looking and maybe, deriving other information from that. Instagram is a bit above and beyond me, and I've heard of Snapchat and all of these things as well, but maybe not for me. I'm almost with Tony with the quill.
We did have conversations actually with there's organisations, it's happening quite a lot here now, where organisations are creating portals for their tenants portals to sign in, pay rent, all sorts of things. And we've had conversations that might be an opportunity. There might be certain things that could be used to get information to tenants. They'll have their own login. It could be a sign up, it could be a survey, it could be a post, it could be an article, whatever it might be. That could be a wee opportunity as well, in a different way than the standard, the Facebook and the Twitter and things. But that's internally. I'm looking at it from the outside here. That's for an organisation to kind of worry about and how it looks and what the function of it might be.
I don't think that's unlike what we've just seen about the community platforms, because that would offer groups or individuals to have access to something specific to that you could put polls on or consultations on, that sort of thing. And it means that individuals don't feel like their landlord is trying to snoop into whatever they're doing when they're not dealing about their tenancy.
A lot of the larger organisations, housing associations down south that I've been involved with have got, just as you said, Aidan, they've got like a separate, completely separate community development regeneration page or platform. And it's tied into the website of the organisation, but it is completely separate. And we're not asking for any information from the people that are coming in apart from the surveys and what have you. So that ties into Evelyn's, platform. I think we need to do something, and I think that needs to happen quite radical, quite quickly, because I'm not seeing a shift from Facebook with any organisation that I'm working with. And as you guys are all saying, it's just not as relevant now as it was when we started doing it 15 odd years ago.
Yeah.
That's sort of linked into that, Jonathan. There's a question about GDPR and using Reddit as well. And I think a lot of landlords are concerned about GDPR.
Yeah.
I can pick up that one. We used Reddit more for targeting areas, communities like Swansea or Cardiff, and asking them questions. So one we did recently was, if you could say one thing to your landlord, what would it be? And they just answered how they saw fit. So I don't see that as a GDPR issue. Most people on Reddit are all using fake, names as their user ID anyway. I know I am. So I think I don't see it. The other thing we use Reddit for is the adverts. We run paid adverts on geo-targeting Wales, and then they click through to our survey and fill it in, and that works really well. It's really cheap. And if anyone's interested in that, I can pick it up with them in terms of what we pay, how much. But you geo-target areas with your advert, and it'll show across the Reddit platform, depending on your interest. But another day for that, if anyone's interested in talking about that. Yeah.
David, can I just make an observation about something that Aidan and James were talking about earlier? And I thought it was really interesting. You said that you were able to recruit a lot more young people in the second year because they were able to see the benefits and the outcomes of what you've done. And I just think that's sort of a real gold nugget there that we can use across tenant participation generally. So I don't know whether Aidan and James, if you want to say anything more about that, the outcomes.
Yes, if I can jump in here if you don't mind, Aidan.
Sure.
In terms of recruitment last year, I'll give you sort of like a time period to recruit 14 people. I started recruiting in August, and the program didn't start till like towards the end of November. So however many months that is. This year I started recruiting at the end of September, and the program started first week in October, and the same amount of young people were recruited. And it was because using social media platforms, but I may add, more specifically Instagram for young people, we were able to document and highlight the work that had happened in the previous program. And then other young people are able to see, well, they're able to sit in these groups where such and such, have their voice heard. I'm at a position now where I want to advocate on behalf of other young people regarding housing issues. I'm going to find myself applying for this program. So a lot of the recruitment actually came from young people reaching out to myself this year. About 60% was all of them reaching out to me, rather than me going out and trying, as someone said, outreach in these community groups and whatever. So it was a lot easier based on evidence to show that the success of the previous year. I just found it was a lot more easier for me as a professional to recruit this year, and it's good because the scope is a lot wider as well, the range, and the different types of young people. I've got rural young people and stuff involved this year, so I don't know, there's a lot in that evidence-based stuff. So seeing something working, and then other young people going, well, I want to attach myself to that. That's very successful and something I want to get involved in.
Yeah, makes
The
sense.
perfect example as well of making your life easier instead of having to go looking, recruiting, because like I said before, recruitment's very, very difficult. But if you have people coming to you keen with those things in mind, wanting to get on board, then you can spend your time doing other stuff. You can spend your time planning, organising sessions, organising all sorts of different stuff instead of the time intensive recruitment process, you know.
Yeah, a lot of that comes down to trust as well. You find like young people are very distrusting when it comes to, I'm just going to be honest, the housing executive. But because we're a completely separate body, we're a youth organisation, and a lot of the relationship is down to trust. And then also as well, what you can provide. We're saying we're not going in supporting everything the housing executive do. We're here to challenge the housing executive in order to make it better for young people. And we have evidence to support that. The age range that we're working with are the highest percentage reporting homeless, but yet they're the lowest percentage getting allocated housing. So there's a complete inequity there. And that's where our standpoint is, well, listen, we want to challenge this. And that's how we're able to recruit young people who are then of the similar opinion that young people need to be more represented in housing issues. So it was a lot easier the second time round, but it was a lot of work the previous year to get into making it a wee bit easier this year.
Just to add on what you're saying there, James, I think as well, quite in any type of participation, dissatisfaction is often a driver. So if you have areas where you know that there are young people who are unhappy, you know, that is where you jump onto that opportunity, because they will be really passionate about what they feel is inequity or, you know, or unfair. And so that's a surefire way to get recruitment as well. So don't miss that opportunity, I would say.
Yeah, you guys in the youth forum, it's a lot of it is about harnessing that. Yes, there's dissatisfaction, there's strong feelings, and I've been out actually a good few times with the groups, and it's fascinating because one person from one completely different area is suffering or experiencing the same things as somebody from a completely different area, and it's about getting them together in that collective voice and making a change based on that. And that's what yourselves are doing really effectively, in fairness. And it's great to see, because otherwise there wouldn't be, and it would probably just lead to more frustration, more annoyance, more problems, more, you know. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I think generally, if you want to encourage more people to get involved, you really need to show the difference that the existing groups are making. And I don't know whether Izzy or Kirsty, how you've advertised the success of the scrutiny work that you've been doing.
So we've put it out on our regular platforms, Facebook, Twitter. Obviously, speaking at the TPAS conference in October, 2 of our youth scrutiny panel came along and delivered that session with us. So that kind of generated quite a lot of interest. And we're happy for people to contact us to find out more information.
Great, thank you for that.
Okay, Helen, the questions? I'm just looking through anything there. I know Sheena's saying, call me old-fashioned, but I still believe nothing beats personal engagement. And I think that there's no substitute for that. I don't think many will disagree here. I think where people like myself and digital come in is to try and reach further afield or across Wales from us on certain subjects. But if you have got that ability to go in, like John's doing, into schools directly, I think it's a different type of engagement. It's that qualitative and quantitative, isn't it, that we're looking at, really. I don't know if anyone else has got anything to want to say on that. Do they agree with Sheena?
I kind of do, but only because she's my boss as well. But but I think at the word of the day that we kind of offer as well is hybrid now too. You know, I totally agree. You can't beat sitting in front of somebody, having a chat, having a conversation, because you can get an awful lot more engagement and interaction. But I suppose with the past couple of years of COVID, things not happening, or meetings face to face not happening, a lot more digital engagement was happening for us. I mean, our trainings were online, our meetings were online, everything. So I think it's about, like, we still do offer that if we can. If we're doing a face to face session, we'll still offer a Zoom so that I suppose we're just not trying to build a wall or trying to build a barrier for folk. You know, if you're having it face to face and we're offering training, and if you can't come, you can't participate. That's all of a sudden building that wall up. So as much as possible, we I know I don't necessarily like the word very much, but hybrid. You're offering things hybrid as much as possible. So I think I don't know whereabouts it is somewhere, but there's a happy medium, or there's a compromise to be found somewhere.
And I think that goes back to that hybrid, isn't it? You know, as TPAS Cymru, we don't have a great history of engagement with Roma, Gypsy families, things like that. It's just one of our weaknesses. But by using some of the digital platforms, we have managed to, you know, and we've managed to get that type of feedback and response from some of that community, which we wouldn't have been able to do face to face. We don't have the credibility ourselves to go and do that face to face. We would need to, rightly so, partner with somebody else, you know. So digital can, as I think, supplement the face to face work, maybe. What else have we got, Helen, down here?
Yeah, lots of observations rather than questions, just saying brilliant work with the primary school children. And Rob Kearney makes the point, it's about being able to adapt quicker and being about to move on at the pace of young people as well. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything to that. In the chat, David, Paul from Bron Avon is saying that they've launched an online platform called Your Voice, where customers can sign up and engage on Bron Avon projects. Bron Avon are down in South Wales, so they can engage about rent surveys or pet policies and so on, so that they can complete surveys without actually having to sign up.
Yeah, and I think we've done some sessions, and we do, Helen, with digital platforms. I think that could be another theme for maybe another 4 nations, looking at the different platforms out there. So I know there's another Scottish councils use a particular platform, which I haven't come across before personally. So yeah, you know, but who's using them, you know, is the thing I'm more interested in, is where the engagement is, who's using them, who are we excluding from these digital platforms. But yeah, they've got to, I think they are part of the future development of all housing associations and councils. Yeah. Jonathan, so you're not in. Have you come across these platforms? Or
sorry about that. No, I mean, yeah, I just think you're right. I mean, and I think, you know, it's a bit of a no-brainer, and I don't really understand why feet are dragged as they are, other than that there is a cost element, I guess, in terms of staffing those platforms. And the other thing I think I've heard, you know, which it makes me giggle a little bit, but you know, what if someone says something really horrible? That's great. Let them say something really horrible, and we'll either counter that with factual information, or we go, do you know what? That was really horrible, you know. So I think there's this fear around people being able to leave messages or leave comments, and us not being able to manage that properly, you know. But our Facebook page, we very rarely get negative comments on Facebook. We might get, you know, someone say, I waited ages for my repair to be sorted out, and then another tenant will come on and say, hold on 1 second, mine was done really well and they did this. So it's all swings and roundabouts, but yeah, it's challenging, it's difficult.
And it depends, I think, on the subject consulting on as well. You know, we still have the climate change deniers who love commenting on everything we do on Net Zero. You know, they love filling up our comment sections. But that's just life. That's part of society, isn't it? You know.
And I think all I would say about the presentation that I gave today was the school children are from about 7 to about 10, you know, and I really went in there with assumptions. I really went in there thinking I'm going to have to really dumb this down and really, you know, storytell it. And, you know, these kids were just like on the ball. They knew what was going on. And I think perhaps, and going back to a point I think Aidan might have made, or James, about changing the pace. And I suddenly had to go from going, hello, to going bang, 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 because I was losing them. You know, and it's just being confident in going, actually, you might have to change your approach halfway through your approach. And that's cool. That's not a problem, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's the beauty of working with young people, though, isn't it? Being at one and then thinking, right, scrap this, we're going into something else, and always being quick thinking. And And it's also that comment about how young people can change within the minute, or, you know, and it's that transition into adulthood, or if you're, you know, working with younger people that always, and it is just fun. It's about making it fun, making it engaging, and making it accessible for those young people. So if they don't want to do that today, it's not the end of the world. Like, you just switch and change and get, you know, the outcomes that the young people want by listening to them and by adapting to those, you know, those young people need. So yeah, it is, you do have to change, Jonathan. I can, you know, I agree with you on that one.
And I think going into the school, okay, it's a bit more work for me, okay, but going into the school and I've got that direct access to all those young people. But for the young people, it's something new, it's something different, it's a new person in the school, and they really key into it really, really quickly. And, you know, as I'm walking out and the bell had gone, I was walking, how do all these kids come? When are you coming back? When are you coming back? And they were hanging on to my, you know, and it was just brilliant. You know, I felt really loved. It was like wonderful.
Yeah. But I think it's also about using channels that work for them. You know, no big surprise, my son had quite a successful YouTube channel whilst in primary school. So for him, if I'd asked him to go and film something in your community you'd like to see changed, or one thing you'd like to see better in your park or something, that wouldn't have been an issue for him, because it just they've got a digital skills awareness. So rather than filling in a feedback form, you know, a video submission would work better. And we've got to be able to take that type of stuff in and process it and show it to the decision makers.
I think on that note, Dave, sorry.
Oh, sorry, you carry on. I've got a question afterwards. Izzy,
yeah, say on that note, it's when you've created the relationships with young people, you then create what they like to do. So it is, if they are more that way inclined, it is about, you know, tapping into that upskill of young people, and you get so much range in regards to work and how you work. And so it is, those relationships at the beginning are so important, and the pastoral support is so important, because it creates an image of what that young person likes, doesn't like, want to do, interest inside of the session, outside, around the families, how to safeguard them. It's the whole bigger picture around the actual content, but then also further for the young people's needs.
And I think there was a comment there on the side about data safety and stuff. I think it's all about what you use that video for. When I've used it, we've never used it in, I'm trustee of a charity in a local area, a park. We've never put that back out in public. It's just video submissions to us. We keep it, as in we watch it, we process it, and then we don't keep it. You know, it's all about appropriate use of data, or it comes through from the parents and stuff like that. I think if you've got it, again, you're conscious of what you're using that content for. Is it for insight, or is it for publishing? I think that's a very different conversation. But
David, got a couple. That's okay. We got one question that's asking, and I assume it's to Jonathan, going into schools about safety GDPR.
Yeah, I mean, it's really what David has said. We're not exchanging sensitive information, and I'm not holding on to sensitive information. In terms of safeguarding, you know, I've got my police check, my DBS police check and what have you. But the wonderful thing about working in a school environment is they're really set up to manage externals coming in. So if we want photographs, for instance, they know the children that have signed release forms that will have their photographs on, you know, on our publications. So actually, when you take yourself out of our environment and put yourself in the school environment, they are there to manage all of that for you, really. You know, so it normally isn't a problem.
And the link to that then is, can we keep young people info without parental consent?
At the beginning of our projects, we do a consent form, and it's, you know, as easy as a Google Doc where you can send the link out to parents or guardians. But if they are over 18, they can consent unless it's SEND. But I would always make sure within that you've got your media consent, your online Zoom, if you're using that, literally just cover all bases off one form, and then create a spreadsheet further with that, just in case anything comes up, you have that there. But I know with schools, Jonathan, I don't know if you want to talk on the school.
Sorry. Now, in terms of with the school, I say I don't have to do anything. If I do want to hold any information, or if I did want to take any specific information away, I'd have that conversation with the school first. But in terms of, I know with the photograph, because I went along with my consent form, but actually the school already have that sorted out. You know, parents have already consented, and they only put young people forward that have got that sort of like parental agreement already, because they've been engaged in other extracurricular activities and what have you. So it's really not been a problem for me. And in fact, it's a much easier. If I'm doing an event, I've got to worry about all of that. I go into school, I can literally just concentrate on my engagement.
Yeah. Yeah.
David, there's just one other question, somebody asking about what Jonathan was linking to about, I think it's a local authority tenant saying that they always get the local authority or the landlord saying, no, we won't have that because we're going to get negative comments and we're going to...
Yeah, it is a local authority challenge, or centralised command and control, where everything's got to go through a central department. We did some surveys where we analysed social media of local authorities, and I think it was Facebook, and it's one council where I think they've done 140 posts in 3 months, and only 2 of them are housing. So you don't follow things that are too generic. People want to follow specific stuff now, whatever the social media platform is, and local authorities need to enable their housing department. But it's another, I couldn't do that in the next 3 minutes, but I think there is a local authority conversation to be had about social media, but there's a lot of command and central control in existence at the moment, and fear of having those debates. Yeah.
And I think any sort of debate is healthy, as Jonathan said.
Yeah.
It's about building trust in a relationship.
Yeah. So I'm conscious it is 12 o'clock. Some of you will be starting to drop off, or some of you will want your lunch. So can I say thank you to all our speakers we've had today. We've had, Louise from TPAS England, Kirsty from Bolton Home, Isabella from Reclaim, Aidan, Sport Communities, James, Northern Ireland Youth Forum, Jonathan, Elder Park Housing Association, Evelyn and Tony from Scotland. And I need to thank Helen Williams for actually arranging all this, and Yonna behind the scenes. If you know Yonna, she's somebody scurrying around. She'll do all that. I say, oh yeah, we'll put the slides out, or we'll put the video up there. It won't be me, it'll be Yonna behind the scenes doing that. So I thank you, Helen, for arranging this free event. Thank you all, and all the 4 nations for coming together on this. And we'll be interested in doing more of these if you feel they're relevant. So thank you all. Cheers.